So how can Varka be saved? Let's talk about it. My name is Juice and let's get into it. So I think all of us have already faced the fact by this point. Varka is unfortunately an undertuned unit. There is lots of hype for him, there's a lot of interest in him, but unfortunately none of that was enough for Hoyoverse to be encouraged to give him a strong, competent kit. He's not exactly a bad character, but he is far from reaching the heights that other 6.x units are reaching, and that is pretty unfortunate. We all know all of these things already. So, I think now we need to discuss what could Hoyoverse exactly do to fix Varka, because he's in such an awkward position right now for numerous reasons. It's not just his low damage that kind of makes him a sort of odd unit to pull for if you're not an extremely dedicated fan of him. I am a very big fan of Varka, but undeniably, I cannot recommend pulling for this character in good faith. Now, if you've invested into all of the Hexerite teammates for him specifically, and you really love the character, there is no need to hold back. I am sure that at some stage he might get a final buffer added to his team, because there's still an open slot for that. But that is part of the issue, and we're gonna talk about that. Okay, so in terms of how you can save Varka, I think the answer is just extremely straightforward in this instance. Just do the same thing that Hoyoverse did to save Cryo. Add an Escoffier for Hexerai. The thing is, all Hexerai characters received really nice, notable buffs that made them significantly better than what they were before. The Hexerai buffs were excellent, but unfortunately, our first actual Hexerai DPS isn't really all that. He's definitely not bad, but he really isn't living up to the standard of a premium investment into a certain archetype, and that may simply just be because his team isn't finished yet. It's like releasing Skirk before Escoffier, which is a comparison I made in a previous video once. So there's a non-zero chance we'll see this character thrive in the future, and I really do want to believe that. You do have to understand that it's a little rough coming from me, and that there is obviously going to be some copium here because I'm a big Varka fan and I do genuinely want to see him get a buffer in the future, so I am holding on to that hope. But to be completely honest with you, don't get him with the hope of a future buffer. That's just a bad idea. You cannot guarantee a singular thing like that. And honestly, maybe they just don't give him one. I want to believe they'll give him one. He's been built up for so long after all, and they might want to bring him up to the other 6.x units when it comes to performance, but if they simply just want to leave him like this, then there's nothing much we can really do about it. But in any case, I think this straightforward solution is probably the easiest way to save Varka's performance. It's not necessarily going to save his pull value, which is something else I want to talk about because that's its own beast, but it will at least save his performance. It means that for people who really like the character but just cannot bring themselves to invest into a character that is so underwhelming compared to other units this version, they can finally eat well and finally have a character that performs on par with the others. I guess a part of my issue here is just that a Hexerai buffer would have to be ridiculously strong in order to compensate for the DPS that Varka just currently doesn't have. And you have to consider the fact that they'd be replacing Bennett in his best in slot team, because right now Varka's best available core is going to consist of Venti and Durin, and then you're probably going to want to use Bennett on the end. That will be his best in slot upon release, most likely. So with that in mind, this Hexerai buffer is really going to have to pull out all the stops. Now, one other thing I will say is that because the rest of the Hexerai cast has been so well treated, a general Hexerai buffer is probably going to be a really nice addition to the game, especially because most of these Hexerai buffed units are still really good independently of whatever future buffer may come out. They all have nice teams, and their usability all around has been restored, and I think that's really cool. So a Hexerai buffer in concept sounds really good, and it's probably going to help buff up these already buffed characters even further, which is awesome. So I have no doubt in my mind that a Hexerai buffer is a good idea. That's not exactly a bad choice of character to make. My issue is more so, how strong is this character allowed to be? Varka is already kind of struggling as is, and making a character that powerful that also helps other characters who are already in a decent enough position after the initial Hexerai buffs, I'm not sure. Now, the reason I don't completely wave away the idea is because of how strong Escoffier ended up being. Genshin is not afraid to make a character that genuinely just is that broken if it means reviving a dead archetype. Because that's the thing, Escoffier had to be as broken as she was to save what was otherwise a previously completely useless element, which I was very happy about, and it was the most straightforward solution to the situation. If all we're valuing here is performance, just performance, a new character is the easiest way to solve this. That is all we really need here. But pull value? That is something entirely different. So the thing with Varka is that one of the pros I did mention about him in my pros and cons is that he's going to be pretty flexible team building wise because he is going to have 4-star options. If you don't have Venti, then Sucrose is a thing, and we have other Hexarai characters available. So it's not like you're going to be strapped for teammate options, but his free-to-play team is just going to be definitively worse than all other Lunar characters' free-to-play teams. And another big key difference here is that Varka needs his signature to even have acceptable performance in the first place. If you don't have that sig, it's going to be especially cooked. That is something that no other 6.x DPS really has an issue with. Yes, Nafer is high cost, but she's high cost because she really wants Lauma. You can pass on her sig even if it's really good for her. Flynn's, he doesn't need his sig either. Jabai, she can literally get by just fine on Harbinger of Dawn. So that's already -1 to Varka's pull value. He basically needs his signature in order to do mediocre damage. And then another thing is that he is going to need this 5-star buffer. Now, in an ideal world, he is not necessarily going to need Venti and Durin as much as he is going to need this one buffer, which is going to limit the amount of 5-stars that you're going to have to pull for him. And another thing is, like I said, we have other Hexarai characters, so you're probably not going to be forced into getting specific 5-stars, provided that you have that one particular key. I mean, that's pretty much how it is with Cryo. As long as you have Escoffier, you are going to have a pretty nice day playing Cryo teams. She is all you really need in order for Cryo to be strong again. And I'm really hoping that if we were to get a Hexarai buffer, that would help his case. But even so, his pull value would still remain comparatively low when it comes to the other 6.x units and looking at their pull values, especially because he's going to be rerunning alongside Flynn's. You would honestly rather just get Flynn's instead if what you're looking for is a main DPS. He is good at a free-to-play level, while having one of the best premiums in the game right now. So, unfortunately, Varka's just kind of in an awkward situation where we can save his performance, but his pull value is just going to remain low. And the situation is only going to get significantly worse if you specifically need his best-in-slot team in order for him to match up to the other 6.x units. Compare that to Jabai, who on a complete 4-star team can do some crazy things. So, no matter what way you look at it, Varka's just kind of in a fried position right now. I think his pull value is basically just always going to remain low, because even if they do end up saving his performance down the line, he's just going to be in an awkward situation, the same way that Skirk is. But it could even be worse if you really need his particular best-in-slot, because with Skirk, all you really need is a Escoffier, and then that's your situation sorted. And then, with Nafer, once again, if you have Lauma, that is the majority of your situation sorted. But my goodness gracious, if Varka ends up needing his full premium best-in-slot team on top of his signature weapon in order to be anywhere near as good as other 6.x units, oh man. Unfortunately, I just don't think he's ever going to be a meta unit, no matter what way you look at it, because yes, there is the possibility to save him, and it's a very straightforward way to save him. Now, you can technically quote-unquote save him already if you just get constellations on him or his teammates, like you can very much make him feel strong through other means, but the fact of the matter is, that investment is always going to be better placed elsewhere, and it would be fine if he was the best of his kind and he was definitively a huge upgrade over all other Animo DPSs, but the issue is that Venti recently got his own Hexarai buffs. You could easily skip Varka and just keep playing Venti as your main DPS, and nothing is gonna change. He is still going to be a very highly competent, strong unit, even if you don't pull for Varka, and then you have a good Animo DPS. Problem solved. And on one hand, I actually am not opposed to Venti being a good alternative Animo DPS that uses Hexarai. That's not bad at all. I love Venti. He's awesome. He is literally one of my favorite characters, and he was my favorite character ever for a really long time. I love seeing that he is a good character nowadays, but I was kind of hoping that he would be able to supplement the Varka team, and then the Varka team would be absolutely bonkers. The thing is, there isn't really much of a justification to go and pick up Varka over Venti if you already have Venti, because it's not like they're going to be accessing some insane 6.x character level of damage standard, which Varka is just not really reaching, and I feel like he should have been a more noticeable upgrade if we already have Venti as a more budget-friendly option. The thing is, I do really like Varka, but I'm not the type of person to go, oh yes, I really like this character, therefore they're very awesome and good. Varka's cool, and he's got all the aura in the world, but yeah. His pull value is just kind of in the dumps, and unless he gets a 4-star support, which would be great by the way, if he just gets a really good 4-star support that's made for him specifically, that boosts him up a lot, awesome, that could honestly be a great solution too. Something like what Jabai got with Aluga, that would work. But let's be real, I just don't think that's happening at this point. So, unless we got like a 4-star like that, he's just always going to remain really cost inefficient. And outside of being cost inefficient, his performance can very much be saved, but he is probably never going to be truly meta. I feel like the only way they can justify this guy's existence is if they make him really expensive to invest into, but the end result is that you get like the strongest DPS in the game. But I don't think they're going to do that. Now, if they do make him the strongest DPS in the game by like a noticeable margin after you get all of his premium needs, then okay, fine. I can see that being a justifiable reason to exist in the state that he currently exists in, because then he would be a long-term commitment rewarding type option. I wouldn't be against them adding something like that, because then the character would be expensive, but at least he would have his own niche in a sense, or at least his own reason to get him. The reason being, if you're willing to commit to this particular character for a long period of time, then you're going to be rewarded handsomely for it. But unless Hoyoverse has the guts to do that, he's pretty much just always going to be in pull value limbo. His performance can definitely be saved though. All he really needs is a super strong final slot for his best in slot, and then the problem is for the most part solved. Now, like I said earlier, you can just dump constellations on him. That will probably help you out if you really want him to feel super strong, but ultimately, don't think he's ever going to be meta unless we end up seeing an extreme situation like the one I just described. Hopefully this video was able to tell you how Varka can potentially be saved. This has been Juice, signing out, and I have saved up quite a lot of Primo Gems. I will be saving my Varka with Constellations. Here's hoping I can get lucky enough to get a good amount of those.